Blablabla. Ah oui, ça marche. May I start? Yes. Maybe the others will come back from the coffee break, because there is a coffee break before, there will be a coffee break after my presentation, so you'll enjoy coffee very much. So I am Jean Millerat, and I work in a French administration, French governmental organization called the Conseil départemental des Hauts-de-Seine. I will talk about mechanism design, and mechanism design applied to my real world. The real world of the Conseil départemental is the real world of citizens who need some help because they have disabilities, because they are poor, because they need social welfare, social help, social services. So they go in waiting lines, they fill forms, they come to public servants and they ask for money. And we in the Conseil départemental, we collect money from the taxpayers and we give that money back to the people in need. And that's a very centralized way of doing social justice. And I'm interested in, I am exploring what could it be in the blockchain world on the very far side, on the very right side of this slide. And in order to bridge the gap between the real world, the real centralized world of today, and the real decentralized, trustless world of tomorrow, I used a board game, and I will tell you about that. So the way we do social justice usually is, as I said, by having public servants, paper forms, maybe sometimes IT forms, web forms, and sometimes blockchain can help. And last year I presented a small experiment where the Conseil départemental servants would register people with disabilities on the blockchain and say, the owner of this Ethereum account has some severe disabilities, so that donors could give money, could give ETH directly to these people. So blockchain can help central authorities by bringing some transparency and by lowering liability for direct giving schemes, where the Conseil départemental does not receive the money. But that's quite limited, because that's not trustless, that's not decentralized. So I wanted to experiment this year with what would it be like if we had a consensus-based, a trustless system for defining who deserves to be helped, who needs social help, who has disabilities, who is a senior citizen losing his daily autonomy and needing some money. The cons of these kind of schemes is that they are not really safe. Privacy is an issue, scalability is an issue. Well, you are very familiar with all the current limits of the blockchain technology, but there are some very big advantages to be obtained in the future, in the near future, I hope. First, it would be simpler, because there would be no need for a governmental organization, no need for an NGO to collect money and to give it back. That would be direct giving. That would be cheaper, because no employee, no public servant. That would be more convenient, maybe, no waiting lines, no complex paper forms. And that would be hackable. That would allow anyone to design their own social justice scheme and to implement it. That would probably not replace central social justice. That would be a complement. That would be something that would add a layer of welfare. So the idea is that you can design your own social justice. And in order to design the social justice I imagined, I had to design a way of voting, a way of doing what we call a shelling game protocol, so that people would vote on who deserves help, who does not deserve help. And there are many many possible applications of this kind of scheme. So I had to deal with a problem of mechanism design. So you know that game theory is great when you've got a given set of rules, a given policy, and you want to define what's the optimal strategy, what's the behavior that is optimal for this set of rules. But when you've got the reverse problem to solve, you have a mechanism design problem. So I want some behavior from the citizens. I want taxpayers to be happy to pay money, or at least to accept to give money to the system. And I want people to assess if other citizens are really in need of that social money or not. And I want scammers to fail when they try to scam the system. What's the right set of rules in order to obtain these behaviors? I had many ideas because, like you probably do, I read blog posts, I read things about P plus epsilon attacks, I read things about how there are great technology great technology bits to defend a guy against this type of attacks. But in the real world, how can I know that these technologies really work and that they will bring the right incentives for the people to behave like I expect them, like I hope them to behave? I had a need for testing the ideas, for testing the designs that I read about, that I imagined. And so I'm talking about a game board that is something that is really paper-based. So I've brought my equipment with me. That's a piece of egg carton that I cut with the scissors. I've got some beans, or you can use chickpeas. I've got a dice. I've got paper. I've got pencils. And with that, I could test, I could experiment the rules that I designed for the system with real people who are not geeks. And the fact that I used a game board, something that is really not technologically complex, helped me to recruit testers. Because when you do design, the hardest part most often is to recruit testers. And to recruit testers that are not your mom, not your wife, not your friend, but people from everyday life, and who would enjoy testing and get the right incentive to test your system. And why did they come to me for testing the system? Because playing a board game is something that is fun, that is enjoyable. And that allowed me to iterate faster. After each game session, I could think about the rules that I tested, and without having to write any line of Solidity code, without having to deal with the complexities and intricacies of truffle or I don't know what, I could change the rules and test them once again, maybe in the evening, with the people who would come and play with me in the evening. So what I say is that with a game like that, you've got a cheap way and a lean way for doing a lean startup way of testing mechanism design things. And the real value from these tests come from malicious behaviors, because the main obstacle to overcome with your system is to have people trust it well enough so that they will donate money, so that they will put money at stake, or that they would give attention to your system, so that they will adopt your DApp or your set of smart contracts. And they can do so if you can bring some proof, and not some theoretical proof, but some real-life proof that it works, that scammers are defeated, and that the altruistic users of your system will win in the end. So one of the fun piece of one of the fun aspects of playing a game is that you can divide the players in two camps: the altruistic camp, the attacker camp, the malicious camp, and you bring the right incentives for the malicious camp to win, and you try to bring the right rules so that you will defeat their attacks. And in my case, in order to make the game fun, I set up this game in the universe of the French Revolution. And the idea was to distinguish the real sans-culottes. The sans-culottes are the poor people from the privileged ones, so the aristocracy, without knowing who really is a sans-culotte, who really is a privileged person. And the two camps, the altruistic would be called the revolutionaries, the ones who want the social justice revolution to win. And the attackers are the grabbers. In French, we call them the accapareurs. During the French Revolution, there were some people who wanted to grab everything for themselves. They were called the grabbers. And in the end, what's important to me is the social impact that can be brought with such a game. So before the game, I would ask the players who, in your real life, if you had to design your own social justice system, who would be your sans-culotte? Who would you like to help? So I did one game with a judge. She said, well, I would like to help the people who are in prison and who are about to get out of prison. Okay, so let's imagine we do that for this kind of people. Would it work or not? And at the end of the game, I would ask them, now, how much money would you like to put at stake or to donate to such a system if it were brought online with blockchain technology, for instance? And it helps me to recruit early adopters too. So that's the idea. You can play with me. You can play with me near Paris. You drop me an email. That's my email, sig@ethcc.org. We can also play online. I've got an online version. You can contribute to the project. You can read the rules on this website, and you can also suggest enhancements or report bugs about this game. That's it. If you've got questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we have been thinking a lot with a colleague how to make donations peer-to-peer to people that is in the streets in Paris. And we found two constraints. One would be how to actually get that money to the person that you are giving it. And the other one would be how to use these donations to actually get a tax reduction at the same time so you can incentivize the people to use it.
That was the main point of my presentation last year, because I had with me the parents of a young lady who was severely autistic. No, she had a trisomy, and so Down syndrome. And her need was to buy toothpaste. She wanted branded toothpaste. And so I registered her as someone with disability. And I had a donor give money, give ETH. And then the parents got ETH, and they say, okay, we have ETH in one hand on our mobile phone, and we want to buy toothpaste. How do we do that? And it was a real struggle. In the end, we found a way for doing that that was really complicated. That was to send money to a SpectroCoin account, then to buy French Amazon vouchers, and to buy toothpaste. And the fees were enormous, and it was really awful. So at the moment, that's an open issue. I don't have the solution. But in this scheme here, maybe the question that we would ask when we've got some Ethereum address, the question that I would ask to the players, to the voters, would be, do you think that sending ETH to this address will end in having that person in the street getting some help or not? Whatever the intermediaries are. So maybe the end user, the beneficiary, does not have a direct access to the blockchain. Maybe it goes through an intermediary. Maybe this is a non-profit organization. Maybe this is a neighbor who's savvy enough about blockchain. But my game board does not solve the last kilometer problem. And that's a real issue. The digital divide is real. Other questions? Thank you.